My guest in this episode of Highest You is Rawan Albina. Rawan has been an executive coach and leadership developer for the past 18 years and is currently the director of the Leadership Academy for Chalhoub Group. Rather unusually for a luxury retail person, her LinkedIn strapline says that she is a transformation architect evolving and raising human consciousness. Welcome to the podcast, Rawan.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you, and particularly to talk to you about what this means, a transformation architect who's evolving human consciousness. Tell us a little bit about that.
You know, when I started coaching and working in leadership development, I realized that what I was doing was so much more than just what we define by coaching. And people who were going through the programs I was facilitating and the people I was coaching, I could clearly see they were going through a transformation. And the work they were doing with me was basically the foundation upon which they built the new person they were becoming. So I came up with this tagline because I truly believe that the work that we do in leadership development and coaching truly contributes to raising human consciousness.
I love that. I love that description of the foundation on which people become more of themselves. I mean, I guess
yes,
it's the highest you is what this podcast is all about. It's about becoming that. So
a better version of yourself.
Exactly, the best version of yourself, in fact, and building on that foundation and raising human consciousness. Now, that's quite a brave thing to talk about in an organizational context.
Yes.
So how does that land with the executives that you work with?
I don't always mention the word consciousness. It's there on my LinkedIn profile. I don't shy away from talking about it, but for many people, it's not tangible. And in the business world, you really need to make something tangible. So I talk more about inner transformation, about self-leadership, about developing self. So it becomes more palpable for them, if you want, and it makes more sense to the mind. But I do use the L word a lot. I do use the love word in the workplace. I do.
Great. Tell us about love in the workplace and how you talk about that.
You know, when I start, I say the journey we're about to go on requires some courage. At the heart of courage is core, which is Latin for heart. So for you to be courageous, courage is a heart word.
Courage is to be full of heart, to come from the place of heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And, you know, this podcast is all about leading with soul, and I guess it's heart and soul, really, isn't it? It's coming.
I totally believe that the heart is the gateway to the soul. This is the way I see it. And even if sometimes we don't talk about soul, but it's really communicating on a soul level. This is what makes us better leaders and allows us to become the best version of ourselves that you're talking about.
So Rawan, you've been doing this for a long time, developing leaders in organizations. So tell us about how you became conscious of your purpose and the mission that you were on.
Yeah, it started, I was a brand manager with a big multinational, and I had discovered coaching. And I was studying because it was really, really interesting for me. And then when I had my son, I went on maternity leave and I just couldn't go back. I really felt this calling. I would call it the heart calling. And it was a great opportunity to spend time with my son, newborn baby, and start building coaching practice. So this is how I started. I knew that there was something in this because I was so passionate about it. And I felt at the beginning like I was raising two children, you know, my child and my coaching business. And then the more I did it, the more I learned, the more I grew, the more I realized that this is really my purpose. And so I say today that my purpose is really opening the hearts of leaders. This is what I do.
What a beautiful purpose. I love it.
It was a very long sentence, and over time, it just became so simple.
Opening the hearts of leaders, yeah. And I think it's wonderful to have that presence to your own purpose and what you're about in the world and the mission that you're on, and to have such a defined mission and such a beautiful mission. So tell us, the world of work is really changing, and it's changing very quickly. And what do you see as the future for humans in the workplace? What do you see as evolving in this space?
Yeah, I think human relationships will become much more important. The ability for leaders to empathize with others, to really listen, to build heart connections, and to really be present, and be able to think on their feet and make decisions from a place of presence. This is going to become much more important, because all the big problems that leaders used to solve for might now become much easier to solve with AI and all the development. But these human relationships will never be replaced.
I love your description of those kind of human characteristics and the human relationships that have become much more important now. And what do you see as presence when you talk about leadership presence? How do you see that?
It's the ability to be fully present in the moment, not only be in our head, but to really be grounded in our body and be able to connect to what someone else is saying, not only from our ears in a processing way, but connecting to what is really meaningful, and to really become human this way. More humanity in leadership, I believe, is the future.
I love that. And this idea of presence, we've always talked about executive presence, but I think we're getting clear what executive presence actually means. The first thing in terms of presence is coming into presence with oneself. And you mentioned the body, and kind of, a lot of leaders walk around, and they're sort of a head on a stick without so much connection to that kind of the embodied feeling. And actually we know as leaders, if we're going to connect with other humans, it comes from a place of heart, which is a body thing.
Embodiment is such an important thing that hasn't been addressed in the workplace. We are brought up in systems that encourage us to think from the head up, and we go to work with this. And it's very important that we remember that actually the body has so much power. And when people work on their executive presence, a lot of work is done on, of course, the stance, the how you portray yourself, the physical appearance, the position of the body when you walk, when you speak. All of this comes into play. But real presence is when I know who I am grounded in it. And then I speak from a place of authenticity and truth.
I love that. When I know who I am, I'm grounded in it, and I speak from a place of authenticity and truth. I'm just saying it again because actually it's such a beautiful encapsulation of what it means to really be present and to have presence as a leader, and to speak with authenticity. So tell us more about authenticity. I mean, you develop leaders in a big organisation. I would imagine that authenticity is one of the things that you talk about with them.
Authenticity is just who we are when we remove all the layers that we've built over time. And the reason why we have layers and we wear masks is because we are all driven by some sort of fear. And when I work with leaders, especially on self-leadership, we work a lot on what are the fears that drive me and drive my behavior. And fears are not these big things that we should remove. It's understanding my fear, befriending my fear, really thanking my fear because it got me to where I am. Say I have a fear of failure. I'm going to always strive to succeed. And so you'll find that the most successful people got to where they are because of the fear of failure. But then authenticity means I realize that this is what has been driving me. I say thank you to the fear because it got me to where I am. But I get to a moment of truth where I realize I don't need it anymore. Because if I am to connect with others and really be myself, authenticity means ridding myself of this fear and letting go of whatever is holding me back to bring my full self to the table.
such a beautiful description of what it means to be authentically you and to actually let go of the fear and the fear maybe of being found out, or I think it's one of the common things we see as coaches in organizations, isn't it, that people are concerned that they have imposter syndrome, or that somebody might discover that I'm not who I've been portraying myself to be, and actually letting go of those masks and allowing some vulnerability. I think
very important word.
And do you talk about vulnerability in the leadership development that you do?
Yes, a lot, because very often in the corporate space, vulnerability is mistaken for weakness. And so really defining what vulnerability means is a very important place to start. Being vulnerable, allowing myself to show more of who I am beneath the surface. But vulnerability is not easy unless you have a psychologically safe environment where you are allowed to be vulnerable. So this is another important thing to consider.
It is, absolutely. And it takes, as you say, courage to show oneself and to not need to be seen to be perfect in every moment. But
absolutely.
You're right, organizations need to become safer places for people to do that. And we know from the Google research, for instance, that teams where people feel psychologically safe are the highest performing teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they feel free to take risk, to innovate, to get things wrong, to not be perfect, to show up.
Yes.
To show up from that place of authenticity.
Yeah.
Great. So tell us about how you're developing leaders in your organisation now. What's the number one thing that you're focused on developing in your cadre of leaders?
So I lead the Leadership Academy, which is a small part of Chalhoub University. And at Chalhoub University, we have many different academies. We focus on retail, on what we call enabling arts, which is the technical development side of leadership. We have an AI and digital academy as well. And we also have a well-being academy. For me, well-being and leadership really go hand in hand. And in my work specifically, building on the great work that was already done, I am taking leaders on a journey. We've designed journeys that allow leaders to start by understanding themselves, because it's very important that I get to know who I am before I'm able to deal with other people. And then leading others, leading people, leading teams, and then really going into the business and the organization and understanding more about how do we create cultures, how do we bring in transformation and change and strategy and innovation and all the things that are important leadership topics. So we cover a 360 degree of leadership. But because of why we're here, of course, I have a soft spot for self-leadership as well, because for me, it's the foundation.
It's the foundation, and it's the foundation, without which I think leaders shouldn't be let loose on other human beings, right? Because if you don't have
Absolutely.
self-awareness, you're not aware of who you are and your impact on other people.
Yes, we spend a lot of time working on triggers, actually. Becoming aware of my triggers, where my triggers come from, being able to go on the balcony of myself. This is the language we use. How can I, in the moment, be aware that right now I'm getting triggered and I can actually choose a different response?
I think triggers are so important, and I have an exercise I call trigger tracking, where I get clients to actually kind of write down their triggers over a period of time, because they're a direct route into the heart of the thing that needs fixing, or needs looking at, really, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's the map.
It's the map, exactly. So you spot your triggers and you track them back to go, where does this come from? What meaning does this show me about who I am in the world, and why is this difficult for me? Yeah, great. So tell us about how your values align with your business life, and how your leadership aligns with your spiritual beliefs.
Yeah, such a great question. When I started on this path, it became a conscious decision to choose roles that are true to who I am and align with my values. When I joined Chalhoub Group, I joined because, for me, this is a mission. It's not because I was being offered the title director or because it's a great organization, of course it is. But if they were not open to the kind of work I was bringing, I really had a heart-to-heart conversation with the person who is my manager today to say, listen, I really want to bring all of this, and I need you to tell me that it's possible. And then he said, nothing is impossible. And so that was my green light. So I have a huge value around making a difference, a very big value as well around balance. So the role is important to me. The impact I'm creating is important, but also being able to have balance in my life, being able to spend time with my family, to spend time taking care of myself is also important. This is another one of my values. So it's very difficult to work in a place that doesn't align with one's values. It could be for a short period of time that you realize this is important to me and I'm going to consciously put aside one or two of my values because at this point in my life this is more important, but it cannot be a long-term thing. And you asked about how it aligns with my spirituality. I really believe that the work that we do is a soul work. And I've done a lot of healing on my journey because I really believe that when I'm standing in front of a room facilitating, it cannot be coming from a place of ego. It's not about me and how great I am and how much people in the room will love me. It's about how am I in service of the participants in this room. How am I able to really impact them on a deeper level and allow them to get in touch with their soul mission? So from a spiritual perspective, I believe all the work that I'm doing is very aligned with my soul purpose.
So I love the idea that as developers, who we are being is more important than what we're doing or what we're saying. And so, we need to make sure that we're coming from a place that is absolutely aligned with ourselves so that we can hold a space in which other people can step into that to become the best versions of themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I have to give thanks here to all my teachers who have taught me how to be over time. I started my transformational facilitation journey with Lisa Doig in 2016. And she used a model called the Be, Do, Know model. And the way we were looking at facilitation was through these three lenses. And I learned over time that the knowing and the doing comes. It's the being that is the hardest part of the job. Because you cannot, going back to authenticity, you cannot be your truest, purest self unless you are able to deal with the trauma in your life, with healing wounds that are in your life, because at the end of the day, the fears are there because of wounds that we carry. If we are unable to heal those wounds, the fears will still be there and they will still be leading us. And the ego gets a bad rap, but the ego is there because it is needed for us to function as human beings. It's a very important foundation. But then to learn to differentiate and to learn to step away from ego in a place of being that becomes safe for others to get in contact with.
And as you describe it, the best leaders that I know come from this place of being. And they create that in other people. So it's not about doing. And a lot of leadership is about doing. And actually, I think this focus on being and recognizing that the impact that you have in the world is a lot about who you are, not
Absolutely.
necessarily what you say or what you do. I mean, they all need to be in alignment, but it's the being bit that people really resonate with.
Yes.
From a heart place.
Yes. I don't know if we can talk about vibrational frequency.
We certainly can.
Yes. So one of my spiritual teachers says your vibration is your offering. And if we think about vibrational frequency, we connect that to, say, fear and love, because we spoke about both. Fear has a very low vibration, love has a very high vibration. The more we can heal our wounds, the more we can live at a higher vibrational frequency. And when the being comes from this place, if the vibration is the offering, then your space, the space that you offer, becomes a magnet to the people who need what you offer. And so this is how, another way of looking at architecture, I think. building.
Architectural transformation, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm wondering if there's, a Middle Eastern flavour to this, because how do you see things evolving in terms of consciousness in the Middle East, particularly in leadership?
Yeah, I think the Middle East is in the heart of its awakening and consciousness. The Middle East has always been a very spiritual place because of the presence of religion and the connection of religion to tradition and to culture, right? It has been much easier for me to bring in spirituality in conversation with leaders in the Middle East than it was for me bringing that in with leaders in the West, for example, because of the nature of spirituality here. And today, the connection between spirituality and leadership and business is becoming clearer and clearer. So when I needed to make a case maybe 10 years ago, I don't feel the need to make the same case today. I think everybody agrees that this is now needed, even if they don't talk about it.
I agree with you. Those are some of the conversations that I'm in as well. And I agree with you particularly about the flavour of this region and how it's different. And there's more openness to this concept of leading beyond the ego and being connected with something bigger than oneself, and leading from love and peace and compassion and purpose and all of those things.
Absolutely.
So tell us what leading with soul means to you.
Yeah, you were just talking about the flavor of the Middle East. I think leading with soul is like the song you carry in your heart. It's your own flavor. It's your own tune, your own rhythm. Leading with soul really means being able to connect through the heart in this being space and not being afraid to show who I really am. And we say leading with soul, not leading with heart, because the way I see it, and as I said earlier, if the heart is the doorway to the soul, if I lead with soul, it means I am so connected with my mission and my purpose that the alignment is there, the congruence is there, and I know I don't need to explain it.
And this idea of congruence, which really is about alignment, isn't it? There's alignment. I think we would come back to this topic a few times actually, which is kind of aligning who I am at a heart level with how I'm being in the world.
Exactly.
So tell us about the leadership practices that you found most effective for the flourishing of leaders in your business.
I find that every leader has their own practice, and I totally respect that. But things like checking in with my team members on a more heart-to-heart level from a compassionate space. Really being interested in how they're feeling that morning, if there's anything standing in the way of them bringing their full selves that day. What is it that I can support with? Really deep conversations. Also, when I find that someone on my team is not okay, not to be scared to go there and have that conversation with them. Many leaders are afraid of emotions. And that's because we are simply not trained to deal with emotions or even name them for ourselves. So a big part of the work we do is naming the emotions, working with the emotions, working through the emotions, and welcoming them. not shying away from them. I think practices like giving candid feedback or having courageous conversations is so important. Not to surface conflict all the time, but there are things that we simply cannot deal with if they're just shoved under the carpet all the time. There are things that we really need to talk about. And so this is another thing. Meditation. I find that meditation is one of the practices that really works. It's a hard sell. I'm not saying it's easy to convince people that meditation is a good thing. I use brain science. I talk a lot about, what happens in the brain when we meditate. I've personally been meditating for almost 10 years now, regularly. I can see the impact it has on my life, on my level of presence, on my beingness. And at Chalhoub Group, we offer meditation every Thursday for 30 minutes that everyone from the group globally can join online. And the group is slowly growing. And every single workshop I have will have at least 15 minutes of meditation just to get people into it. Because it doesn't only offer the necessary pause that we need to just breathe and get along with our day. One of my teachers, Thomas Hubel, used to say, you meditate within, and so the space that you create over time starts to grow and expand beyond you. And so it becomes part of who you are and your presence. And you don't meditate, you are meditated.
Love that. And this sense of expansiveness that I get as you talk about that, I think is one of the most precious things that leaders can have, because, leaders spend a lot of time with quite a tight focus on the things immediately in front of them, and actually being able to step back from that, to observe self in action and to create spaciousness in one's being. I think it really allows leaders to embrace the things that they have to deal with.
Yes. The spaciousness they create then expands to include others in their field. So they will find that their teams will come and talk to them. Problems that used to be problems are not problems anymore, they're opportunities. The way we see life, the way we start looking at solutions and attracting solutions becomes different as well.
So you may have covered this in the conversation that we've just had about meditation, but I'm going to ask you anyway, what practice do you have that you personally find the most helpful for your own growth and expansion?
For me, it's meditation, and I don't follow a specific technique. I always encourage people to find what works for them. But being in silence and just breathing, sometimes for 10 minutes a day, sometimes for 1 hour a day. It depends on how much time I have in my day. What really works for me is some people love physical exercise. They love to go for a run. I know running, cycling, even going for a walk, being in nature is so important. For me, being in nature is very important. But also dancing is a big resource for me. I just love dancing. I love singing as well. I hadn't sung for so long, and then I found an adult choir that I could join. And I felt that singing also gave me a voice and allowed me to be even more aligned and be more connected to my soul and my purpose. And so whatever hobbies people have, to reconnect to those hobbies is a great resource. Being in the presence of beauty and art and going to concerts or watching, a play, anything that is a resource to your soul, that you walk, while you're in it, you're in the moment and you're not somewhere else. It's grabbing you fully, and when you walk away, you feel like this is such an enriching experience that just resourced you for days to come.
Exactly. So getting in flow and getting nourished by the things that feed our souls.
Yes.
Yes. And
getting in flow. This is one of my favorite words, flow.
And keeping that spark alive, you know, that the spark that we all have, that light that we have within us, you know, how do we keep that alive? Well, we do that by reconnecting with things that give us joy.
Joy.
Yeah.
Joy is, I feel, missing in the world today. And we need to actively find joy in things that we do. Because if we don't, then stress, burnout, diseases, you name it.
Well, I thank you very much, Rawan, for coming and sharing your joy and for sharing your voice that you clearly have found and connecting us with the beautiful soul that is you. And I really enjoyed this conversation, so thank you very much for your presence.
I enjoyed it very much too.
Yeah.